What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Me and old Justin are going to try something entirely new today. We're going to kind of go through current events, what's going on in the world. We may never even air this. It could totally just like not do well, but we are constantly kind of keeping our finger on the pulse of like what's happening in the space. This space is evolving super rapidly with, everybody diversifying into AI. So we want to kind of run through some of the top stories that we've seen this week, provide a little color commentary. If you guys like it, we'll keep doing it. If you hate it, let us know. We'll just get back to regular shows with guests. So first up, I think this is kind of some of the biggest numbers I've seen thrown around recently. Crusoe, our boys over there have raised an absolute metric shit ton of money, $3.4 billion.
I got to think they are some of the best fundraisers in the mining industry from the time they came
absolutely
to now. I don't know who,
absolutely.
I don't know anybody else who's put money together like that.
So this
Pretty
deal,
impressive.
How much did they raise the first time? Let's back up. They raised.
I want to say it was like $2 billion around there.
Okay.
We can definitely find out, obviously. In this one, I think it was 3.4.
Yes, 3.4.
And I'm pretty sure there's been some prior to the initial that we just talked about. And then even in between, I think there's been some additional raises.
I'm really curious what their valuation is. I don't have access to like PitchBook or anything, but I'm super curious. I mean, because based on the numbers and kind of back of napkin math, I would imagine it puts them at minimum maybe 7-8 billion, if not more. They started off, so like, let's go to a trip down memory lane here. They started off doing flare gas mitigation with Bitcoin mining. They were the first one to kind of raise a lot of money and be a little bit more institutional. And I think in a lot of ways, even though that they've become somewhat of a controversial figure for a variety of reasons in the Bitcoin space, were kind of the pioneers because they were the ones who went out and raised a ton of money and brought a lot of awareness to what they were doing. And then with this, they've since pivoted. I don't think they're doing any of the flare gas mitigation stuff anymore. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think it's a major aspect of their business anymore. But it is still, I think, something that they have within their, overall umbrella. But I don't think it's kind of their core business anymore. When I was at an oil and gas operator at the time, we were actually like the first or second group to ever do anything with them. This is back in the day. So
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So it was a long time ago. I mean, it was like 2018. But Andrew Likens, he's still there. He was the dude we worked with on it. So, but yeah, I mean, they have pivoted. They've been very creative. They've found ways to utilize their kind of mining experience and technology to branch out into other areas. And I mean, yeah, you can knock them all you want, but they've been very, very successful. And obviously the investor market has found them to be a very likable candidate to put some money in. So congrats to those guys for another fundraising victory. But yeah, I don't know how much of that is still their kind of core focus.
So a little details of the deal. This is they're entering into a joint venture with two other groups. One's called Blue Owl and one's called Primary Digital Infrastructure. And they are essentially building a 200 megawatt AI data center that Crusoe is going to be either single-handedly developing or co-developing alongside some of these groups. And apparently it's already pre-leased out to a Fortune 100 hyperscaler.
Freaking Coley's killing it.
They're killing it, man. They're doing awesome. So this is really cool. I want to keep paying attention to this. Up next, this is kind of a fun one. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it yet. I have.
I haven't. I'm looking. How is it? Well, first, go ahead. Tell what it is.
Well, yeah, okay, so HBO has released their documentary Electric Money. And really the entire premise of the documentary was really to kind of figure out who is Satoshi. And they go through a lot of different theories. Is it Adam Back? Is it a couple of these other guys? And it's funny when you Google it and you kind of look around and see what's being said, like we have an article pulled up from Bitcoin Magazine, and the title is "Money Electric is an insult to Bitcoin, cynical, stupid, and dangerous." And so I think it's like from a kind of like a history standpoint, I think it's interesting. I think the ethos of a lot of Bitcoiners is that Satoshi should remain anonymous and we shouldn't turn over any rocks to even attempt to kind of figure out who that is. I understand people's concerns on the other side, but
that's inevitable though. Everybody's going to want to find out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was funny though. I'm sitting here watching it, and our boys from Giga are in the documentary for like a split second. Yeah, Matt and Brenner in there. Oh. I guess it was at they were filming at BitBlock Bloom, and so I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's super cool. Matt and Brent find a way to be on everything, don't they?
They're everywhere. These guys just know how to milk the media.
They're good, man. I love those little dudes. They're impressive. But so I don't know. What did you think of Electric Money? I want to watch it, and also, by the way, I kind of agree that if we ever do find out who Satoshi is, there's probably some really there might be some really big problems. I don't know. I don't know what it'll do to everything, but I think it's inevitable that people are going to try.
I think for given the fact that it was made by like non-Bitcoiners, it seems like they made a good attempt to understand it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything in there. I think sometimes Bitcoiners can become hypersensitive and sound like little whiny bitches. I think it's good. I think it's a good thing overall to kind of enter more of the social conscience of the world. And so I think overall, even though the premise of the documentary was to kind of reveal who Satoshi was, I think kind of bringing more awareness to Bitcoin. And I think for the most part, it was in a pretty good light. I'm not saying you have to agree with everything, but I think it's more net positive than bad.
Can you give me a spoiler and just let me know what they decided the outcome was? They don't know.
It's kind of like we don't know. They kept really hinting that it was Adam Back from Blockstream, and so they go into all the drama and kind of the history. There were some things that I didn't even know, so I thought that was pretty cool. Some things that I wanted to kind of.
I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yeah, so I didn't think it was bad. I think it was worth watching. I think everybody should watch it and kind of make your own opinions. But like I said, I think it's good that Bitcoin continues to get more of a light shown on it, even if you don't agree with every single thing that's in that, right?
Well, hopefully our other documentary, Dirty Coin, will be getting some love here pretty soon when it finally gets released. It's phenomenal.
It's so good. If you guys haven't seen that, go to a premiere somewhere. Alana's been doing those everywhere. And we're not just saying that because we're in it, but it's really, really good. Great storytelling. She crushes it.
I thought she did an excellent job. But and I think like you just mentioned, if you request a premiere to be set up, I think there's actually a website link. You can request a premiere to be set up somewhere like in your town or whatever. So you can do that. Maybe we should find that and throw it onto the show link or something after the fact. But it'd be nice to see that documentary really take off when it comes out. Dirty Coin. Made by Bitcoiners. So
by Bitcoiners. And Alana's been on the podcast. If you guys are curious, she was, I don't know, it was about a year and a half ago. It was before she had even released it. She was still in production. So you guys feel free to go check that out. Kind of in the early days of the pod. Marathon.
I'm looking at the picture. Sorry, this is current affairs too, because I got so much freaking white in my beard, dude. Jeez. I looked at some of the old episodes, and it was way darker than it is right now.
You've done it in your beard, and all my hair's going gray.
Yeah, you get some salt and pepper in there, bro.
I'm getting there. All right, up next. All right, Marathon's going off grid, baby.
I like it.
What are your thoughts on it?
I like it. Yeah, I like it a lot. I think I know some of the other folks in it. I don't want to put them out on blast because I don't know if they want it talked about, but
is who they're working with public or no? I don't see it in the press release.
Yeah, I don't think it is real public, but it's very good group, and I'm excited for them. I think they're kind of undercover experts at all this stuff, and I think there's actually, you and I were kind of chatting about it a little bit. I think this is more of something that we're going to see from a lot more groups. I think there's kind of a little shift happening right now in the mindset of some of the mining groups out there. And we kind of talked about it on the episode we recorded earlier with Mr. Pinver. And it has to do with groups kind of reevaluating where they want to grow and how they want to grow and what they want to grow with. And I think that there is more and more groups looking, which is kind of weird because back 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, getting off grid was kind of cool, right? And then everything shifted and everybody wanted to go on grid because you go big and you do all the stuff. Now there's a little bit of a change happening again. And I think some of the bigger players are looking at these like, hey, we kind of would like to do some off-grid stuff. And there's a lot of advantages to gas when you look at it. And so I think this is going to be more of a trend as things continue on. I think Northern Data has done some stuff off-grid as well. So yeah, I'm excited for not only Marathon, but the other group they're working with on this. Again, I'll keep their confidentiality intact, but I'm glad to see a player like a Marathon looking at a project. I think it's 25 megawatts, so it's not huge, but it's enough of an investment and a strategy shift that I think is going to start becoming more of a trend we see with some of the bigger guys.
I agree 100%. I think Fred really kind of hinted at this at Empower last year with kind of his keynote talking about AI hyperscalers coming in, willing to pay a premium for power to a point where maybe a lot of Bitcoin miners that are on grid are not able to actually afford power anymore. And they may be forced to go off grid. And so I see this as him kind of, seeing if this is an opportunity for them to be able to grow off grid, maybe get around some of the issues that you do have. In a lot of ways, on grid is much easier than off grid, but in certain ways, I think it's becoming crowded, it's becoming harder, and potentially going to become more expensive over time. So
yeah, and I think too, it's a shift in the ideas of, again, like we talked about it earlier on the other episode. I'm looking at things, different deals that come across my desk, and evaluate them from a standpoint of like, in some cases, at very low runtime. Like you're talking 50% or even less in some cases, but not buying maybe your top of the line machines. Looking at some of the M30 pluses, things like the M30S pluses, S19s, things like that. That they spit out a decent amount of hash, but they'll consume power. You can buy them super cheap right now, and your ROIs they're excellent. They're actually better in a lot of cases than when you're investing in the top of the line machines. So when you want to keep your focus at being, a profitable company and having profitable projects, these ones start making more sense. And I think long term, because your hash price is going to constantly be going down. And so you're either going to have to be keeping up with new machines and expending a ton of capital, or you can look at projects from a kind of different lens and look at it from just an ROI standpoint. And I think there's some really, really, really attractive opportunities in the mining space, but dealing with things that we wouldn't traditionally have done, like low run times. You don't have the same regulatory kind of potential impact, I think, off grid as you do on grid. And so this might start being something that I think a lot of groups are going to say, hey, look, we can't just keep dumping huge amounts of capital into buying the newest and latest machine. Maybe let's look at some of these opportunities where we might not have the runtime we want, but our ROI is still, 6 to 8 months as opposed to, 2 to 3 years. So just something to watch.
Yeah, we're also getting Fred on the podcast here soon, so I'm super excited about that. It's been a minute since I've seen him, so we can get an update on what their strategy is, and that's going to be a good time. How about we dive into, before kind of looking through our notes here, we kind of make a hard shift into a lot more AI talk, AI meets power talk. let's talk about the election impact on Bitcoin a little bit. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, I personally am not a big fan of any party, any person, any of that.
Or the government as a whole.
Or the government in general. I'm just not big on it. So I don't find a huge need for it. People, if they want to get into a debate about it, I'd gladly do it. But, it's just something that I'm not a big fan of. That being said, it is the system we live in. And there are consequences and impacts from elections that we have, both at the federal, state, local, all the levels. And I do think the biggest impact is only going to be short term, right? I don't think there's going to be, if Kamala Harris wins, I don't think Bitcoin is going to disappear. If Donald Trump wins, I don't think Bitcoin is going to go do something dramatically different than what it would do if Kamala Harris won. That being in the mid to long term. Short term, I do think there's probably some type of price impact and probably a lot of scrutiny that I think can interfere with the growth of businesses related to Bitcoin and crypto in general, but Bitcoin is what we care about. So I do think there could be some serious impacts to that. But at the end of the day, the whole reason we love Bitcoin is because of it's not censorable. It's uncensorable. It allows you some sovereignty from government interference. Doesn't mean policies from the government won't impact the price of it, but ultimately, Bitcoin's bigger than just the U.S. and it's bigger than the presidency, and it's probably going to thrive regardless of who's in office in the long term. However, I do think where this could start impacting the mining business in particular is on a state-by-state basis. I think, and we've seen this really over the past few years anyway, is more of a consolidation of operations in what are typically oil and gas friendly states. So energy intensive states is, I guess, I'd really look at it. And I think that consolidation is going to continue to occur, but it will occur a lot faster depending on who wins the election, and be even more pronounced, I think. So I do think there's a short-term impact. If Kamala wins, even though she's kind of signaling that she's going to, I don't know if you saw her quote, and I'm just going to say it. It's kind of absurd. She said something about she wants to promote basically the crypto industry, but with a regulatory framework that will protect Black men. I didn't understand why she needed to throw that part in there. But I think even that might be a little bit of a indication that they recognize the need to be, they call it crypto, but we know what we're talking about here, Bitcoin, but to be more Bitcoin friendly, and not so averse to it being a part of the ecosystem or the economy here in the US. And so I think that's probably a good signal, even though I don't understand the quote she made for it. But I also think the mere fact that we are talking about this now, whereas back in 2020, we would have never had a conversation about Bitcoin in the election, not outside of people that were just Bitcoiners. And it wouldn't have been a topic that was raised consistently to presidential candidates. You think about the Bitcoin conference, we had Robert F. Kennedy there. We had Donald Trump there. And there was rumors that Kamala Harris was going to show up. The mere fact that the Bitcoin conference is attracting presidential candidates, I think is showing the tremendous growth and strides that the whole industry has made over the past 4 years, really 3 years. It's dramatic. I don't know of anything I've seen become such an issue so fast in my lifetime. I really don't.
And then you see Trump over at PubKey ordering burgers for everybody.
Right. From Drew.
Buddies on TV.
Drew over there teaching. Yeah, it's incredible.
That was so awesome. Yeah, I agree with all of that, man. let's go into, before we go into AI, I think let's kind of fill everybody in on, I guess, our, I don't know, kind of like updated mission. I mean, obviously everybody's been diversifying into AI. The intersection between AI and power, I feel like kind of fits in the same sphere. And so I feel like if it's something that we didn't talk about, I feel like we'd be doing you guys a disservice. So kind of moving forward, we do plan on doing a lot more at the intersection of AI. Doesn't mean we're leaving anything on the Bitcoin side, the Bitcoin mining side. We're still going to do all of it. And plus, Bitcoin mining is like, it's a really small and like niche community, and it's very easy for us to run out of things to talk about. So this keeps things kind of new and fresh. And so really kind of in no particular order, like all of these are along the same lines, these different headlines. I guess we can kick it off with Riot has come out and said that they are open to AI, and if the right deal comes along. And they've historically said that they were going to be more of one of these pure play kind of Bitcoin miners. But I think, and what's been referenced in this article is that they kept referencing the CoreWeave Core Scientific deal. And so I think that really got a lot of people thinking about, okay, maybe we should probably consider that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they make a lot of sense to be married together. Obviously, Bitcoin miners, the size of a Riot or some of these other big guys out there, Marathon, obviously, they have experience running large scale, data center type facilities. Swapping out the infrastructure for AI stuff, it's not a 1-for-1 from the capital side at all. Yeah. And I'm not going to pretend to know the operational kind of day-to-day of an AI setup. But obviously they probably are similar enough to where making a jump from being a Riot blockchain focused on Bitcoin mining exclusively to, bringing in some aspect of large-scale AI operations is not a crazy jump. TeraWulf also, they've talked about some different AI aspirations. So I think that it's a logical transition or jump that those companies are making. And I mean, when you're looking at the numbers that are out there that AI groups are willing to pay for power, I think it'd be foolish for a group like Riot to not explore those options. They have access to tremendous amounts of electricity under contract. And if they can find ways to create a larger arbitrage on their OpEx and their revenue generation, of course, like why would they not do that?
I think pure play Bitcoin mining is such a risky business, right? And so much comes down to timing, and you have to get the timing right. And if you don't, you're dead. And so I think using it as a tool, it doesn't mean that you're not like, a hardcore Bitcoin miner. I think it's using it from like a business standpoint as a tool to be able to diversify a little bit and relieve some of that pressure, especially during this kind of like trough of pain that everybody is experiencing with suppressed hash price that's gone on for much longer than I think people anticipated. I think you have to seriously look at AI. Is this a way that we can make some extra cash and allow ourselves to breathe a little bit? And that kind of leads right into this next article of miners like Mara, Riot, CleanSpark. In September, they all increased their Bitcoin production, leveraging strong balance sheets, large operations to weather reduced profitability caused by the halving. However, the stocks have underperformed with these gains. But in contrast, miners that are diversifying into AI and HPC, such as Core Scientific, TeraWulf, and Iron, outperformed Bitcoin during the same period.
Right.
So they're being rewarded for it.
End of the day, that's what matters for a public company is, your shareholders, are they happy with the performance and with what you're doing? And the market's going to reward the ones that are, and they're reaping the benefits of that. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's not a capital intensive 1-to-1 or capital expense 1-to-1. But from the standpoint of like, look, we have access to the most important thing here, power. You got to monetize it for the best way the market's going to demand, and I think all the companies, one consistent vein I've heard over the past like 2 years in particular, these companies are really power companies, and that's where they're going to create their customers. That's where they're going to create the revenue, and when you have access to that amount of power, it's just the next natural jump is the AI space. So I'm interested to see I don't know what you think, but you remember when like early 2021 and all these companies are popping up and the valuations for miners at the time was absurd. I mean, crazy. And it felt like it got frothy all through 21 and into 22. And then we saw the tank on pricing and just people getting their faces ripped off. Will we see that in the AI world? Do you think we'll see a scenario where it's like, this has been way overbuilt and it's going to have some type of consolidation from the players that are out there?
It's a great question, and it's something that I'm not quite sure I know the answer to. I think that if we look at why there's a race to build, I think that is, I think naturally over time you will see consolidation, as with every cycle. Because I think there's gonna be 1 to 2 clear leaders in this market, and everybody's racing to own a piece of. It's not just like, I think so many people are thinking of AI as just ChatGPT, which is great, and all the new AI applications, but really what all of this becomes over the next 3, 5, 10 years is it's a step change for modern humanity. Right? Because if you look at it the same way that like how the internet changed our lives and how there's been an entire, like all tech businesses are built on the internet, right? It is the base layer to most of our society, right? And if you're living in a first world country, and I think that AI is going to do the same thing, but orders of magnitude larger than that. The difference being is that nobody owns the internet, right? And with AI, you've got OpenAI, who's probably positioned to be the leader at this point, xAI, a variety of others. Everybody's working on it, and it's a land grab. And so they want to build up as much as they possibly can. So is it logical that it could be overbuilt? Absolutely. However, I do think the demand could potentially be even larger than we're anticipating.
I can see that. What I want to get a better handle on too is like, what's the minimum size a legitimate AI group is looking for? And then
I've seen some big numbers thrown out, right?
Oh yeah, I have too. Crazy numbers. Like we're not looking at anything under 200-300 megawatts. Well, there's not a ton of those opportunities out there without building new generation, right?
Yeah.
And then when you start thinking about the operational runtime, like they're going to have to have a lot of redundancy. If they're on grid, that's a big chunk of power being sold to a group that's not going to probably be involved on a whole lot of curtailing unless they have some type of backup redundancy generation, I would think. I'm not an expert on the operations of an AI site, but from everything and logically, it needs a lot higher runtime than a Bitcoin mining operation. So I feel like there might be an aspect to all this where eventually even AI is going to need a Bitcoin mining group because, like, over time, I got to believe it's going to be the same thing. At some level, you're going to want to start reducing your OPEX costs because right now people might pay 10, 12 cents a kilowatt hour for, electricity. But after more of these groups pop up and there's more competition and somebody's trying to, be the best in their market segment, they're going to want to reduce OPEX. Well, the power price is going to be probably the easiest area, just like a Bitcoin mining operation. And if you're paying 10, 12 cents, you're going to be better off if you're paying 8, 9 cents, 6, 7 cents. Like, I think it's going to be a drive to try to find a more attractive site, but there's not going to be a ton of these, right? And so you're going to have to play the market and have some way to curtail to sell power back to the grid. So that's where I'm like, I think there's a natural fit, again, for AI and Bitcoin to go together. But I think even from an operational standpoint, from a AI, I could see a need, now this is probably way down the road, but I could see a need for them to have a Bitcoin mine as part of their operational or revenue generating strategy because of the ability to curtail a Bitcoin mine. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine there not being regulatory headaches for AI groups down the road when they're drawing huge amounts of power off of the grid.
And it's not a large flexible load.
Right. It's not a large flexible load where you can curtail and help stabilize the grid. That whole argument will be gone with AI if they're not curtailing. And those two things, from everything I've known and talked to people about, that's not the goal of an AI group. They're not going to be curtailing. So like, there's probably still, this might even facilitate more growth for Bitcoin mining, just as a as like an option to be a curtailable load for an AI facility.
It helps them change their messaging a little bit. Yeah, because honestly, when you're adding gigawatts and gigawatts and gigawatts of power onto these individual grids, and it's not a large flexible load, you're only exposing the grid's weaknesses. Right. And so I think there's going to be increased scrutiny. We're already seeing it on data centers. And so I think that there's a couple things at play here. For one, I haven't seen, and this kind of goes into the articles that we have kind of listed out here, I haven't seen nuclear talked about as much ever.
No.
And so there's a couple of groups that are going in and taking these mothballed nuclear power plants and wanting to essentially refurbish them and reuse them for data center and like really large amounts of power. However, there's not many of those. There's a handful, and then even if there were more, there's not many companies who could afford to go do that. It's truly the FANG companies who are, multi-trillion-dollar companies. Then you're looking at small modular nuclear reactors, right? And so there's a couple different press releases that have been kind of dropped this week. Google is just did a deal with Kairos Energy, and so they're a developer of small modular reactors. And a lot of these, the timelines that I'm seeing are like 2030 is like the earliest to 2035, but typically with how these things go, probably going to take the over. These things are going to take a while. It's going to take a significant amount of time. There still are regulatory headaches. There still is NIMBYism of not wanting this stuff near me just due to the entire sentiment towards nuclear. Though I do think nuclear is phenomenal. I think it's absolutely the best base load and probably one of the best inventions of our entire lifetime. However,
dude, I saw a bunch of nuclear commercials when I was in Florida a couple weeks ago.
Really?
And I was like, whoa. They're talking about like, oh yeah, and these people like sitting around. It's like, yeah, and the only thing it puts off is water vapor. And the guy's like, oh, I'm staying so cool in this. When did this start happening? Yeah, but I've seen some of that lately.
Yeah, here's a tweet. I'm going to read the tweet's a little bit long, but I think it was really good, and it kind of, I think, paints a really good picture of this whole space. It's from a Ryan McIntosh. Pay careful attention to these nuclear project announcements. There's a big difference between buying existing reactor production, restarting old reactors, signing PPAs to purchase power once a reactor is built, and funding a new reactor development. Hyperscalers have demonstrated nearly inelastic demand for power, as evidenced by their willingness to sign power purchase agreements at rates exceeding $100 a megawatt hour. Their priority right now, however, is speed, securing power as quickly as possible. Acquiring output from existing nuclear plants or reactivating dormant ones offers an immediate solution. Talon, TMI, Palisades, etc. While PPAs are often seen as bankable LOIs, they reveal little about the actual cost timelines or even whether the project will be built. So I think it's really, really interesting to kind of pay attention to kind of what's happening in the space. But ultimately, I think that this is probably still 10 years out from really kind of seeing game time. So the question becomes, how do these data centers who absolutely need power, if speed is the name of the game, and like you said, if they're looking for 100 megawatts, 200 megawatts, or in OpenAI's case, I don't know if you saw this, but Sam Altman went to Japan and he was seeing if he could get 5 gigawatts in Japan.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And so there's just not many of these at this scale that you can kind of tap into. So your only options are A, are you going to build something on grid using whatever base load, or are you going to go off grid? those are the only options that you have for the next probably 10 years.
And I think from the aspect of what was said is the most important thing in what you just read, speed, off grid.
Yeah.
Gas.
Well, if it's taken 4 to 5 years to actually get an interconnect, if you're building a new data center on grid right now, and you value speed, and that's why the numbers from the Core Scientific CoreWeave deal were what they were, right? They found this existing facility. Like you said, it's not just a simple one-to-one. You got to go in there and retrofit these things for GPUs since they were previously used for ASICs. But they were willing to pay a pretty penny, and that's worked out phenomenally for Core Scientific. However, there's still not a ton of those opportunities out there. And so I think people are going to have to start looking greenfield, and you're going to have to start looking off grid. And so the question becomes, do you go out there and own do you go out there and own the wells? Do you go out there and just sign PPAs with people who already have those assets? There's a couple different ways you can splice it, but I think that all signs are pointing towards that is probably going to be the future. I may be biased, but I think that.
No, I agree. I totally agree. You might be biased, but I still agree. And I mean, just in all honesty, I've had several calls over the last few weeks from big players too that were basically saying the same thing we're saying right now. That's kind of a direction that I think is going to happen sooner rather than later. You can't wait forever. You know, you spend
$10 billion on GPUs from NVIDIA. They get delivered. What are you going to go do? Put them in storage?
Yeah.
No, you've got to energize them immediately. And that's what they value. And that's why you're seeing these crazy, 10, 11, 12 cents a kilowatt hour PPAs for very long terms.
Right. I just wonder, when's the capital going to disappear? Because, I mean, I guess the money printer go burr type of deal, but that's not necessarily from the investor standpoint. But where are they getting all the dollars? Because it's so expensive. You're talking $15 to $20 million a megawatt in some cases to build these things out. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. You go build a 300 megawatt site, you're talking about some serious dollars. And there's just not a lot of groups that have that kind of capital to build out things at that scale for those type of dollars. And so, yeah, I'm like, where and when, where's the money coming from and when will it dry up? But, it's like you said, it's the way the world is going. And when people that agree with what you said about the impact that AI could have on just humans in the future, if they value it at the level that you think it could be, then the dollars will show up. They'll show up. So it's going to be interesting how this all plays out. But I guess bottom line for me, I don't think big mining companies transitioning into AI is going to have a negative impact on miners. I really don't. I think it's probably just positive, and it'll probably decentralize mining a little bit more which is, in my opinion, good. So in the long run, it probably helps stabilize the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, which is one of the most important things to me.
Absolutely. Is there anything else we should dive into? I think we went through our list.
Man, I don't know. Just I want to start talking too about some more ancillary kind of impacts of the Bitcoin community. And I know we've talked about it
what's on your mind?
Craig Warmke's episode. I loved it. I loved talking to him.
That's your favorite episode. Craig, if you're listening, Justin doesn't stop talking. He's got a huge man crush.
Yeah, I do. I just love the whole philosophical aspect of things and how Bitcoin is spirituality, Bitcoin and I don't know, anything, health, Robert Kennedy type stuff. I want us to start diving into some of these other little topics and broadening our guest list to bring out folks that aren't just Bitcoin mining, but tangentially related to.
Yeah, maybe we should do some episodes where we do a deep dive on We pick a philosophical topic and we just kind of dive into
Yeah.
it and just rant.
And hey, I went to the Bitcoin and psychedelics talk at the Bitcoin conference. It was very good.
Yeah.
And there's some people on there we should have on. One of the dudes, I believe, was like either a Navy SEAL or Army Ranger or something, and just kind of talking about his Bitcoin journey and his kind of philosophical, spiritual journey, psychedelics, and all the interweaving. It was really interesting. So I want to do stuff like that. We can have
I think
these
it'd be a
little
lot of fun.
one-offs where we do that. Yeah, it will be. And Craig is coming back. I was texting with him the other day.
Good.
So yeah, we'll get that set up.
Awesome. This was fun. I think we publish it. This is a good one.
Yeah. No, I think we should. And if nobody likes it, they'll let us know.
Yeah. Just let us know if you guys hate this or if you want more of it or if other
Right.
formats that we should kind of play around with. We're just here to have fun. Thank you guys for supporting the show. I mean, it's been like, 2 years now?
Yeah.
Feels like
Really. Yeah. We're coming up on 2 years right now.
Yeah.
And we should say we have a new member of the team and executive producer type.
We do.
And I'm not going to lie, I've got a huge crush on her. So she's pretty dope. Sarah Ballard. Way to go. I'm not
She's a
saying that because
wrangler.
she's sitting in another room. Yeah, she's a wrangler.
So we got a
So,
lot more episodes coming to you guys. This is our second of the day. We've got a third one that we're doing a little bit later.
Mm,
So I hope you guys enjoy. Let us know what else you want to see. Ping me or Justin on good old Twitter, aka X. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.